The morning sun cast long shadows through the reinforced windows of Millbrook Correctional Facility, as Marcus Williams began what he thought would be another ordinary day behind bars. Little did he know that within hours, he would become the unlikely hero in a story that would forever change to lives and touch the hearts of millions around the world. Marcus had been serving a 7-year sentence for armed robbery, a desperate act born from trying to pay for his daughter's cancer treatment after losing his job and health insurance. Now in his 4th year, the former construction worker had transformed from the angry, broken man who first walked through those prison doors. Through education programs, therapy, and countless hours of reflection, Marcus had found something he never expected to discover in such a dark place: redemption and purpose. Officer David Chen had been Marcus's primary guard for the past 2 years. Unlike many of his colleagues who maintained strict professional distance, David had slowly developed what could only be described as a cautious respect for Marcus. He'd watched the man's remarkable transformation, from a volatile inmate who spent his first year in solitary confinement to someone who now mentored younger prisoners and earned his GED with honors. David himself carried invisible wounds. A former military medic who'd served 3 tours overseas. He'd taken the prison job seeking stability after struggling with PTSD. His marriage had crumbled under the weight of sleepless nights and emotional walls he couldn't tear down. At 42, he lived alone in a small apartment. His only companions, the ghosts of soldiers he could save, and the growing cynicism that came with his current job. That Tuesday morning started like any other. David performed his routine security checks, his footsteps echoing through the sterile corridors. The familiar sounds of prison life, distant conversations, clanging metal, and the ever-present hum of fluorescent lights provided the soundtrack to another day in a place where hope often went to die. As he approached Marcus's cell during the 10 a.m. count, David felt the familiar tightness in his chest, a symptom he'd been ignoring for weeks. The stress, poor diet, and emotional toll of his job had been taking their toll, but like many men his age, David had convinced himself he was fine. He was wrong. "Morning, Officer Chen," Marcus called out from where he sat reading a book on mechanical engineering, part of his vocational training program. "You look tired today. Everything all right?" David paused, struck by the genuine concern in Marcus's voice. In a place where most interactions were transactional at best and hostile at worst, such simple human care felt foreign. "Just another day in paradise," David replied with his usual deflection, but his voice lacked its normal strength. As David continued his rounds, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over 2 years of daily interactions, he'd learned to read the subtle signs of the man who held the keys to his world. David's usually steady gait seemed labored, and there was a grayish pallor to his skin that hadn't been there yesterday. An hour later, Marcus was in the prison workshop, learning to repair industrial equipment when the emergency alarm pierced the air. Through the reinforced window, he saw guards rushing toward the administrative wing. His heart sank as he recognized the unmistakable signs of a medical emergency. "Lockdown. Everyone returned to cells immediately," came the booming voice over the intercom. As prisoners were herded back to their blocks, Marcus caught a glimpse through a doorway that made his blood run cold. Officer Chen was on the floor, unconscious, his face ashen and lips tinged blue. The prison's medical staff was scrambling, but Marcus could see panic in their eyes. Living in close quarters for years, he'd witnessed enough medical emergencies to recognize the signs of a massive heart attack. Without thinking, Marcus broke from the line of prisoners being escorted to lockdown. "Wait," he shouted, breaking the cardinal rule of prison life by directly disobeying an order. "I can help him." 3 guards immediately moved to restrain him, but Marcus's voice carried an authority that made them pause. "I was a combat medic before my conviction," he lied smoothly, knowing his construction background wouldn't carry the same weight. "That man is dying, and you need all the help you can get." The head nurse, Sarah Martinez, looked up from where she was attempting CPR. She'd been fighting to save lives in prison for 15 years and could see. David was slipping away. The nearest hospital was 20 minutes by ambulance, and the prison's medical facilities were minimal. In that split second, she made a decision that went against every protocol in the book. "Let him through," she commanded. Marcus dropped to his knees beside David, his mind racing through everything he'd learned from his uncle, a retired paramedic who taught him basic life-saving techniques during summer visits as a child. But it was more than technique that guided him now. It was 2 years of watching this man treat him with dignity, when others saw only a criminal. "His airway is blocked," Marcus announced, positioning David's head properly and clearing his mouth with his fingers. "Sarah, your compressions are good, but we need to get his circulation going." When was his last response? As they worked together, Marcus found himself talking to the unconscious guard. "Come on, David. Your daughter is getting married next month. You told me about her dress, remember? And what about that fishing trip you've been planning? You can't miss that." Marcus had absorbed every personal detail David had shared over the years, filing away these glimpses of humanity in a place that often stripped it away. Now, those conversations became a lifeline he threw to a drowning man. "I've got a pulse," Sarah announced, her voice filled with amazement. But David's breathing remained shallow and irregular. Marcus made another split-second decision. Placing his hands on David's chest, he began a different kind of compression technique his uncle had shown him, one designed to stimulate the vagus nerve and potentially reset an irregular heartbeat. "What are you doing?" demanded Lieutenant Rodriguez, who'd arrived to assess the situation. Trusting that caring about someone matters more than the uniform they wear, Marcus replied without breaking rhythm. Suddenly, David's eyes fluttered open. His breathing steadied, and color began returning to his cheeks. The medical team quickly administered oxygen and prepared him for transport to the hospital, but it was clear he would survive. As paramedics loaded David onto a stretcher, his eyes found Marcus. In that moment, 2 men who lived in a world built on separation and suspicion shared something profound, a recognition of their shared humanity that transcended the roles society had assigned them. "Thank you," David whispered, his voice barely audible. "Thank you for seeing me as more than my worst mistake," Marcus replied, tears streaming down his face. The investigation that followed revealed the truth. Marcus wasn't a medic, but his quick thinking, basic knowledge, and most importantly, his refusal to let another human being die on his watch had saved David's life. The prison board faced an unprecedented situation. How do you discipline an inmate for breaking rules while saving a guard's life? The answer came from David himself. From his hospital bed, he advocated for Marcus, sharing with the board the transformation he'd witnessed over 2 years. More than that, he revealed his own transformation, how watching Marcus's journey had given him hope for his own healing. 3 months later, Marcus was granted early parole for his heroic actions and exemplary rehabilitation. David recovered and forever changed by his brush with mortality, became an advocate for prison reform and restorative justice programs. He also became Marcus's friend. Their first meeting outside prison walls took place at a coffee shop, where 2 men who had saved each other in different ways continued their conversation as equals. Today, Marcus runs a nonprofit organization that provides support for families dealing with medical debt, the crisis that had led him to make his fateful decision years earlier. David left the prison system to become a counselor, helping other veterans process their trauma and find purpose beyond their pain. Their story spread far beyond the walls of Millbrook Correctional Facility, reminding the world that redemption is possible, that humanity exists in the most unlikely places, and that sometimes the person who saves your life is the one you least expect. In a society quick to write people off for their worst moments, Marcus and David's story stands as a beacon of hope. Proof that we are all capable of change, growth, and profound acts of love, regardless of where our journey has taken us. Like and subscribe for more videos.